All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we've got a story you've got to hear. It's all about rebellion, a total happy accident, and one incredibly brave doctor. This is the story of how two scientists basically flipped decades of medical belief on its head, all because of a gut feeling.
So what really gives you those painful stomach ulcers? For the longest time, if you asked any doctor, they'd give you a super confident answer. An answer the entire medical world agreed on. The only problem? It was completely, totally wrong.
Yeah, for decades, the thinking was it was all about your lifestyle. Too much stress from your job, maybe you ate one too many spicy dinners, and the solution? Well, just eat a bland diet, get some rest. But the real culprit, the thing actually doing the damage, was this tiny little bacterium. So let's get into how we went from that old myth to the incredible true story. Okay, so to really get how wild this new idea was, you've got to understand the myth it was up against. We're talking the early 1980s here, and at the time, doctors thought of the stomach as this impenetrable fortress.
This wasn't just some casual idea. It was like a fundamental rule in medicine. The stomach was an acid bath, a total kill zone, so harsh that nothing, and I mean nothing, was supposed to survive in there. The very thought of bacteria living in that environment, it wasn't just wrong. People thought it was absurd. It was a medical fact basically set in stone, or so everyone believed.
But way over in Perth, Australia, a couple of researchers were starting to notice something that literally everyone else had missed, and they were about to take that so-called unshakable truth and blow it wide open.
So let's meet our heroes. First, you've got Robin Warren. He's this really careful pathologist, the kind of guy who notices tiny details that other people just glance over. And then there's his partner, Barry Marshall, a young, super ambitious trainee who was not afraid to ask the really big and kind of dangerous questions. An unlikely pair for sure, but they were about to become a perfect team.
And it all kicked off with just a simple observation. Robin Warren is doing his routine lab work, looking at stomach biopsies, and he keeps seeing these weird little spiral-shaped bacteria. And then Barry Marshall makes the big leap. He realizes, wait a minute, these things are showing up in every single patient who has gastritis or ulcers. That just can't be a coincidence, right?
So now they have this revolutionary idea. What if it's a bacterium causing ulcers, not stress? They were so excited. But when they took their findings to the wider medical community, well, the reaction was not exactly what they were hoping for.
People didn't just disagree with them, they were dismissed. Some experts literally laughed at them. Think about it. This idea that bacteria could thrive in stomach acid, it just went against everything these experts thought they knew. Warren and Marshall were basically treated like a couple of crazy outsiders with a wacky theory.
And to be fair, the skeptics had a pretty big point. See, in medicine, if you want to prove a specific bug causes a disease, you have to be able to isolate it and grow it in a lab. But every single time Marshall and Warren tried, nothing. The petri dishes were empty, and without that living proof, their whole theory was pretty much dead in the water.
Then came their big break. And it wasn't some brilliant scientific strategy, it was a simple mistake, a happy accident. Get this, the lab's normal routine was to incubate cultures for 2 days, and if nothing grew, they'd toss them. But one year, the Easter holiday came, and the technician just forgot about a batch. They left it incubating over the whole long weekend. When they came back 5 days later, there it was. The bacteria had finally grown. They named it Helicobacter pylori.
So, they did it. They had their proof, right? They'd grown the bacteria in a lab. But it still wasn't enough for the skeptics. The pushback just kept coming, and it forced one of them to do something so drastic, so dangerous, it's now legendary in the history of medicine.
The critics kind of moved the goalposts. They basically said, okay, so the bacteria exists, fine, but that doesn't prove it causes anything. It's probably just hanging out in the stomach, totally harmless. Marshall and Warren were stuck. They had to prove cause and effect, and they were fresh out of ideas.
So, with the entire medical establishment basically ignoring them, Barry Marshall decided there was only one way to prove it. He needed a human test subject, and the only one he could ethically get approval from was himself. This was an absolutely massive gamble, not just with his career, but with his own life. Okay, so here's what he did. Step 1, he got an endoscopy to prove his stomach was perfectly healthy. Step 2, he cooked up this gross, cloudy broth of the H. pylori bacteria, and he drank the whole thing. Just a few days later, he was incredibly sick, vomiting, severe gastritis, exactly the kind of inflammation they said was the first step to getting an ulcer. A second endoscopy showed his stomach was now crawling with the bacteria. And then, for the grand finale, he took a course of antibiotics and, poof, he was completely cured. He had just proven his own theory on himself.
That single, incredibly dramatic experiment was it. That was the final piece of the puzzle. It completely shattered the wall of skepticism and kicked off a genuine revolution in how we treat stomach problems.
I mean, when you look back, their whole journey is this amazing chain of events. It starts with Warren just noticing something weird under a microscope. Then you have the lucky break over the Easter holiday. That all leads up to Marshall's insane self-experiment. And the final proof? The fact that a simple antibiotic could cure it all. Every single one of those steps was absolutely essential to knocking down this medical belief that had stood for decades.
And eventually, the world did catch up. In 2005, Robin Warren and Barry Marshall got the call. They were awarded the Nobel Prize. All that persistence, their courage to challenge everybody, and of course, Marshall's unbelievable bravery. It was all finally recognized with the highest honor in science.
And here's why this is such a huge deal. Think about it. They took peptic ulcers, this chronic, agonizing condition that could last a lifetime and often led to major surgery, and they turned it into a simple infection. An infection you could cure with a 2-week course of pills. You really can't overstate what a massive difference that made for millions and millions of people.
You know, this whole story is just such a great reminder that science is never really settled. It's always changing. And it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's a medical fact today that's just going to turn out to be another stress and spicy food myth tomorrow? All it takes is the next Barry Marshall and Robin Warren ready to challenge everything with a simple observation and a really strong gut instinct.